Welcome to Beats, Rhymes and Debate. Today we're going to jump into the Donda album by Kanye West, and I'm joined by 3 other great panelists today. My name's Jordan.
Hi, my name is Lexi.
I go by the name Judah.
Yo, my name's Kay.
Cool. We're going to start off with everyone outlining what they rate the album out of 5. I'll go first. So I rate the album a 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5, bro.
Yeah,
that.
man. It was
Crazy.
a difficult listen, man.
Wow.
It was a difficult listen, and it wasn't really enjoyable. Like, out of 27 songs, I think I probably like 3 at the most.
Ooh,
Wow.
You know,
no.
and it's a thing where the album, from start to finish, like, it sounds just like one very, very, very long song. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult to distinguish one song from the next. And I think that's my biggest trouble with it, because when you kind of look at previous Kanye West's projects, every song was a moment within itself. And it was just difficult finding that on this project here, you know, but I guess we can jump into that more a little later.
We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. Yeah, trust me.
We really are. I actually rate the album, I mean, if we're doing points, I rate the album a 2.5. I liked a little bit more than 3 songs. I
Yeah.
give it about 5 max.
Yeah.
And I actually feel the same as you. I really did feel like it kind of strung along like one huge song. It was a lot of songs. I felt that there were some songs that were part 2s as well, which I didn't feel like the Joe part 1 I was really not liking. I like Joe part 2, and I just felt like some tracks could have either have been taken off or either just have combined or something altogether. And I don't know, like, I also didn't feel like, especially, it got better towards the latter half for me personally, but especially in the beginning, like, it really did, it took a moment for me to kind of understand really what the concept was. I didn't feel like I was taken on an actual journey where I actually gained something from it, rather than just listening to somebody come up with an album.
With
you
27
know?
songs.
Yeah. But yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay. Well, let me take a sip for this. Yeah. I'll give it a 6 out of 5.
Right.
Raw.
What? That's
I'll
strong.
give it a 6 out of 5.
That's
I'll be
strong.
honest.
That's
Yeah.
strong.
I'm gonna tell you why I give it 6 out of 5. This man is a powerful entity in himself. He has a big audience. He's very influential. Everybody looks at what he does, what he wears, what he dresses. He's got the biggest company with Yeezy. He's just so influential. So for him to say to himself, I'm going to call the album Donda after my mother, and I'm going to make the narrative of this album be positive. I'm going to make the narrative of this album be somewhat gospel, and show my journey and my beliefs and my faith, and how things have transitioned from where I was to where I am now, and how people can change to be like that also. I think that is a powerful thing in itself. And in a narrative where we're living today, where everything is negative and everything is degrading to women and glorifying guns, drugs, money, and sex, I think that it's a bit of a breath of fresh air. You get what I'm saying? To have somebody own an album which is only positive. There was no swearing on the album. Everything was just positive. I couldn't say nothing negative about any song. Okay, do we like every song that I heard? Did I like every song that I heard? Did I enjoy every song I heard? No. Every song wasn't enjoyable. I wouldn't click every song again and repeat it. But the message in every song was positive. So with that being said, a positive piece of work can only get more than a 5 for me, because there's no negative effect other than whether you like the sound of the songs or not. You feel me? So that's where I am with that album. That's just a little bit of how I feel.
Okay, cool. That's an interesting point. I guess you can dive into that a little bit more then.
Yeah, very not so far in comparison to Jude, but I give the album a 4 out of 5. For me, the reason why I do that is because, I mean, following on from what Jude said, I think Kanye West he's an icon, which you know, we would always talk about him and his art from now to forever. So, but what I really loved about the album is there is so much evidence of work on this album, right? Which again, for somebody who is at the level that he's at, to put that much work into an album, to have sleepless nights, to have all of these things that he put together to create this album, and to have such intentionality about it has to be no swearing, it has to have this energy of the music, and actually to see how he brought on a lot of younger artists and challenged them to show a version of themselves that's very different to what they put on their own project.
I agree.
Right?
Do their best verses, yeah.
And not even just best verses that actually added positive energy to the album as a whole, and actually challenged some of these artists to go deeper in their own vulnerable place. I never even knew 5 Foreign talking about when he was in jail, you know, like the fans wrote to him and how that made him feel about himself. You know, that's sides of 5 Foreign I've never heard before. You know, so, and even just in terms of the, even though yes, the album was too many songs, but I feel like every song for me had a purpose besides the song maybe with, what's the guy that Pop Smoke? I didn't really see, I kind of get that, but to me it didn't add anything to the album. But outside of that, I think every other song on the album, I feel like there was a consciousness as to why he put that there. It might maybe have made the album elongated. I think he could have cut out a couple other songs, and he should have put the song with Andre on there. But you know, can't have it all.
I think what's interesting is what you were saying, Judah, about how the concept itself makes it in the ballpark of being a great album, right? But I think where I fall short with that is the execution. You know, I think a lot of albums conceptually are great, but then what really kind of brings it to the forefront of being great art is how the artists themselves are able to bring all the components together. And I think he really struggled with that. If I'm to be fully honest, because from what I kind of get conceptually, like this sounded like I was at a funeral. And then when you kind of tie that in to the fact that it's dedicated to his mother that passed away, and then that album cover art, which is black, alongside them going to all these functions like the gala, dressed in black as well. I think that was a sound that he was really wanting to encapsulate and put across.
True.
But it's a thing where there wasn't enough variation in the album to really hold my attention, you know, because you could have that album playing in the background and think that just one song was on loop. I'm not saying that to take the piss, but
I don't think it's that bad. No
Believe,
way.
believe what I
There's
say.
so many
Believe what I say. The song, the Lauryn Hill sample on that song, on that album, sounds like no other song on that album. But believe what I say.
I know, but that's a song that will wait. And that's a good point,
Like,
because in listening, that's the thing, right? So when I'm listening to the album, it's like I'm listening to it, I'm just like in a passive state, and then the song of the Lauryn Hill sample comes, and then I kind of come back alive again, you know, because it breaks the album up.
I get it.
But before that song, you already had like 15 songs that I'd already played.
Yeah, but I think there's a sonic consistency, which I think there could be a conflation that the sonic consistency makes them monotonous listen. Because I think there is a sonic consistency in terms of the types of sound, the fact that he uses choir synthesization on most of the songs, and the fact that the kind of, like Mike Dean is a genius that works with him on a lot of creation, and that's one thing I think makes Kanye West albums so coherent most of the time when he does them well, is the fact that there is a sonic consistency. Some of his best work, like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, has a sonic consistency to it, which I think is what he tried to recreate with this, where all the artists came together. They were in the studio. They built the songs around the sounds that they wanted to create, and that's what I think this album successfully did. Yes, there are some songs that maybe felt like they didn't need to be after another song because there's a similar energy to what they were. But I think to say that they all sound like one song on loop is a bit
It was
far-fetched.
crowded though. It was a crowded project. Like it just kind of felt like, you know, when you just come out with something, when you have something that's completed, and just because it's completed, you just want to kind of cram it onto your finished product, and that's kind of what it did feel like to me. And even especially in the beginning when it came to actually listening to the album, I actually didn't feel like I was actually hearing Kanye. Like I didn't feel like I was hearing him as an artist. Like even though yes, the album is dedicated to his mom's and it obviously touches a lot on his faith and, you know, coming to God. But I actually kind of just felt like, and I know he did, but it just kind of felt like those like selling points. But really when it actually came to listening to it, I didn't feel connected to knowing about his mom. I didn't really feel like he really expressed or articulated the message of his faith well, and how, you know, God has moved him. Not so much in this album, because I went back to some other songs with Kanye where he has talked about his faith or he's talked about his mom, and I felt more from those songs back then. I think it was Hey Mama from Late Registration and Jesus Walks. Like even those songs, like, you know, they touched on, like I said, his faith, and they touched on his mama. And from those songs back then, I felt more connected. I felt like I heard Kanye there. Whereas in this album, some songs, even the features, I felt like they were getting drowned out by the music, by the production and stuff. And it just kind of was run through. And
that was my only kind of criticism to the album with regards to the conflict, with regards to the message and the sound that he wanted to promote on the album. So the sound was very kind of dark. It was kind of synthy. It was dark. And if you are trying to uplift with the message that I do hear in it, it should have maybe had a different kind of energy attached to the songs that you were trying to show across. So with that being said, sonically, and frequency-wise, it was a bit dark. So it was conflicting to what is the message really, Kanye? You feel what I'm saying? Even though I gave it a 6, and I believe that with the message on a whole, what it gives is beautiful and it is positive, but that conflict there is the big question for me.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. I don't agree, because I feel like there's songs on the album where, you know, for example, Come to Life, you know, that song is so emotively positive and beautiful. The lyrics on there, you know, it's like he's being honest and open, talking about his relationship, but also sonically and musically, it's like the song is taking you to heaven, like listening to that song, you know? And then you hear songs like, you know, Jesus is Lord, the storytelling on that. That's like some of Kanye's best storytelling.
That's my favorite song on that.
But then
it saved it.
It's like, but then it's like you look at, because what we have to realize is Kanye West is not a rapper. He's an artist, right? College Dropout, his debut album had so many features that you can count so many songs where he wasn't on it, you know? So it's like, you expecting any different on his 10th album. To me, it's like, are you invested in Kanye West? Do you know what he's about? Because he's not somebody that's going to run a whole song by himself for 10 songs straight.
But can I challenge you on that, though?
Yeah.
It's a thing where on previous albums where he's been on tracks with other people, it's a thing where Kanye West like still had a presence on the track. It felt that he was lost throughout the album. Like it was a struggle, really kind of like defining what Kanye West's narrative was.
It's a production issue. I believe it's a production issue because the sound makes you tap in or tap out to a lot of songs. So with that being said, when you hear a sound that isn't really familiar to your soul or your spirit or uplifting to your spirit or makes it want to dance or move in a certain way, you kind of switch off and it kind of gives you a kind of negative play on that particular song. And there were quite a lot of songs that had that kind of sound that could, if you're not invested in Kanye to want to listen to him and find out to kind of relate to it more aside from that, then you're kind of overlook it. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with what you said, I think it is a lot to play with the production.
And also another thing I wanted to say around that is one thing I also give him so much credit for is Kanye West is always innovative sound-wise. And there's so many formulas that have already been used in hip-hop that's probably trendier now. And this album doesn't really have any, maybe besides one song where there's like a drill sound and switch up on Off the Grid. But besides that, sonically, everything he's on this album is different to everything else that's out there. Yeah. And to me, that's again highlighting how like genius and innovative he is in terms of how he pushes pushes the envelope in terms of production-wise, how he pushes the envelope sonically, like what he did with 808s and Heartbreaks. There's things similar to that, like the like songs like Moon, you know, with Cuddy. It's so sonically beautiful. He's singing, and I feel like his singing voice he's worked on that. Just like he's giving us things to show that he's actually serious about this work.
But that's the thing. I felt that I didn't get chills though listening to this production. For it to be that kind of touch on that spiritual aspect, and you know, to help somebody transcend to that level. I didn't go there just based off of his beats, the production that he had sonically. I didn't feel that at all. And you said something. Yeah, he is an artist. Kanye is an artist, right? But again, I don't feel like his presence as an artist was really profound in this. Like, I've heard him come out with other songs, even with the lyrics and stuff. I feel like the lyrics on this album was very easy and very kind of cliche. And you know, I felt like there was some songs like Yes, Jesus is Lord and Moon. I did like that, and Come to Life. Those they did have good substance. But other than that, no. Most of the other 28 songs just kind of override it.
Wow.
The song seemed like unfinished. It felt like there was more to actually come to them, which is why, like, when it comes to Kanye West, like, it is undeniable that the guy is a living genius, right? Not just in terms of what he's done in music, but also what he's done in fashion. Like, the guy is just absolutely next level, and creatively, he's a revolutionary. But I do think that because Kanye West is surrounded by this bubble of being a genius, I think at times people force themselves to see the genius in his work, even though it may not actually be there. Like, for instance, I remember there was a skit on the life of Pablo, and it's Kanye West like saying how he loves himself, right? And then you have people like debating for hours on end why that song is so genius, and I'm like,
but it is though.
That's what I mean though, because if we look at this album in isolation and remove Kanye West from it, and then remove also the narrative of his mother passing away alongside the long stadium rollout that he had building up to this album, would we still look at the album in the exact same way? Or is it only within that context do we look at it as this grand piece of art that we don't get yet, but we'll get in the next 5 to 10 years?
I mean, you can't.
This will not age well.
Pardon?
This album will not age well.
I 100% agree.
I disagree personally, because I think, believe what I say, that song that's one of the best flipped Lauryn Hill samples you ever see. And for 10 years from now, that bass line, that music would always live on. That song in particular, I think, is a song.
You like the song that much?
Just the creative use of Lauryn. Tell me another sample that's used Lauryn Hill that's as good as that, or even better.
I actually prefer Drake's "Nice for What" sample.
Get out of here! Serious? Are you actually serious? Or
I'm being dead serious. I actually really like that sample. I like how they cut it.
Wow, that's wild to me.
But the thing is, though, is that, like, even though I said that that song in particular broke the album up for me, I still felt, listening to it, and also how I feel now, that it was a lazy use of a Lauryn Hill sample.
It was. I felt like that too.
I felt like it just felt like they just got, like, they cut a piece of the song and then just put it on loop.
But the music that's surrounding it, the bass line, the live presentation of that, like, in terms of like general consensus, most people listening to that were so blown away by the use of Lauren's sample in that manner, though.
Really?
Yeah, generally. But again, that's a fair point to make.
Yeah.
But personally, I mean, I don't see it in that manner, but, you know, I'm open to hearing other people's ideas, because I think one thing Kanye West does is not think about the right now. And that's why I believe most Kanye West music ages well. I mean, even the rollouts he did before my Black My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy still bang today, and he just released them every week.
Yeah, Good Fridays.
You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't do things for right now. So that's why I think Kanye is not the artist that puts out. Drake, on the other hand, you ain't gonna ever hear none of his stuff next year, like this CLB or whatever. But
Yeah,
that's
his
the
music
thing.
is seasonal.
Whereas Kanye West, I think he has the vision of trying to just create stuff that's not like in the time in terms of like sonically fitting into what seems cool. That's why to me there's not like a standout single on this album, because he didn't create it with that purpose in mind. That, oh, this needs to be on the radio now because this is what's cool and this was trendy. This is what's sounding right.
Yeah,
he just
a bigger
creates.
purpose. There was a bigger purpose for this album.
Absolutely.
100%. He didn't make it with obviously sales are always in mind and stuff
Right.
like that, but this was a much more personal album. It was
Right.
much more thought through to what he wants to get out to the nation. You feel what I'm saying? Rather than let me make sure that it's got that hit on it or it's got
Right.
that hit on it.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Because it hasn't got nothing really that we're going to play as a single,
Right.
but it's going to have things that reach out to everyone individually, subjectively to what
Yeah.
your sound is. You feel me? So,
And I don't think it's a flawless album. You know,
No
I
way.
gave it a 4 for a reason too, because I don't think it's his best work. I do feel like in the last 4 or 5 Kanye rollouts, this is one of the most consistent ones. I think, you know, The Life of Pablo to me felt quite haphazard. You know, there maybe are some really strong bangers on the album, but in terms of the consistency of the album thematically, I couldn't tell you what The Life of Pablo really was about thematically. You know, whereas Donda, I think there's a concise effort to thematically create a piece of immortalization of his mother, while also showing the maturity of his kind of spiritual journey.
Growth,
you know,
yeah.
while bringing other people to that party as well. And I feel like that attempt and somewhat the execution, if not to perfection, to me still was enough to create a body of work that is listenable and enjoyable for me as well while listening to it.
Okay, so where would you rank this album then relative to the previous projects that he's done before it?
I would say probably, I mean, if I'm trying to put all Kanye West albums in some sort of order, I think, you know, College Dropout, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Late Registration, and probably 808s.
Okay.
And then Graduation. I'll probably say after Graduation, it's Yeezus or this one.
Okay.
And then everything else falls after that.
Got
So
you.
Yeezus or Donda, they can flip places. So it's like fifth or sixth, I think.
And I extend that question out to the two of you as well. Where would you hold this relative to the other albums that falls in his
I would say
catalog?
about fifth. I'll say about fifth. Seriously, I can't remember them namely, like how he does to break it down like that.
Yeah.
But I would say fifth in the ranking of what I prefer of his work.
Yeah.
I'll put it in that kind of rank.
It doesn't come up for me, and the reason why, like, I'm not going to consider this. I don't consider this work to be a good piece of work from Kanye. And actually, going back to what you said earlier, Judah, about the whole, there's like he didn't make this and stuff for public, not public consumption, but for radio and for hits and singles and stuff. I actually saw some singles from the album. Like, I actually kind of felt like that he actually was trying to kind of bridge that, you know, I'll rap about my faith so I can kind of break the radio and like play it. It could be played as well in, you know, big settings or big environments or something like that. I actually kind of felt like that's where he was going. Yeah, in my opinion, because I felt like that with Jail, the first one, actually the second one too. I felt like that with Jail. I felt like that with Hurricane. It had that feel to me.
But if you think of radio, you
And-
think of what we listen now. You're not
Exactly.
Gonna say, guess who's going to jail?
Exactly.
You're not going to
You
say that on
won't.
prime time drive.
True,
time
you're
radio.
not. You're not. But at the same time, it felt very. It was flat. It was still flat, and I still felt like it didn't really touch on anything really in depth to me, on a personal level.
Yeah, I think overall this project just seemed really forced. I think that it wasn't something which came across as organic as his other projects. Like, even listening to Jay-Z's feature, it was like he didn't want to be there. You know,
I don't know.
that was a
true.
lazy ass verse, man.
But
It's true.
I don't know. I think again, it's down to how people perceive things.
Yeah, of
Because I
course.
feel like, to me, that Jay-Z verse on there was, if anything, it was like a culmination moment of all the last couple of years of the kind of turmoil that's been between them. The fact that he mentioned that in there, you know, it's like telling stop all the red cap and going home. Like, I feel like everything about that verse and the fact that, I mean, Jay-Z is the status that he's in right now as an artist. Most of his features sound lazy because he doesn't do what he did when he was in his prime. He rarely ever does that. You know, only if he's maybe on a song with Jay Electronica, which is different because that's a rapper. You know, and everybody like look at Jay Electronica as one of the best MCs. So that's why I think the Jay Electronica album, the Jay-Z's verses on there were another level because there was this sort of like, oh, you're not gonna step on me. But with Kanye, he knows that Kanye's not a rapper, you know, so it's like it's a different energy. That's kind of what I take from
It's
it.
more so trying to make the song sound good rather than him trying to like impose himself on the artist that he's gone into the booth with.
Exactly.
Okay, I get that. But again, still, it's a thing where it's like he's brought in all these elements again together, right? And there's just no voice that stands out. Like everything, like before, right? When he brings on certain like artists on the project, right? Like he uses the artist almost as if they're an instrument, right? So like he's collaborated with like Consequence, Pusha T, Jay-Z, obviously, like Nicki Minaj. Like thinking back to like Dark Twisted Fantasy and that moment that Nicki Minaj had on Monster. That is legendary. In fact, like that completely stole. That's one of the main highlights of the album.
No, it's not. But it's one of the.
It's a moment.
Yeah, it's a great moment.
It's a moment where you stand still and you're like,
it's a
wait, you
great
know what?
moment.
This is dope. This album just didn't have that.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It didn't.
Okay, so you see with this album as well, why I give it such a high rating. I stayed up till 5 a.m. watching the visuals.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? So I was sucked in.
Oh, you got lost in the
feel-
sauce.
Listen, I don't know what you want to call it, but I just appreciate the art. I appreciate the art of it. I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the location. I appreciate what he done. I appreciate every aspect and thing that he played during this album. You feel me? So to see the visuals prior to the build up of the album and not knowing when it's gonna come out, and I'm thinking shit as it dropped. Yeah, and he done it. He was a marketable genius in regards to that. So maybe that has impacted how I feel about the album because I've gone the whole journey with him on this album. You feel me? So that does have an extra point and a half to give on top of what I physically listen to the album and think. You feel me? Because those visuals, wicked. His concept, his artistry, just the whole, it was mad. It was mad. He just had you thinking, what are you trying to tell me, Kanye? Does that even make sense, bro? Like, there was so many things that had me thinking that to me is great art.
Yeah.
You get me? Art should disturb the comfortable.
Absolutely.
And you get me? Make them feel like I need to understand this.
I think. Sorry, are you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say one thing that I would not fail to touch on is the fact that there was controversy around the inclusion of Baby, what's that guy's name?
Oh, the baby.
And you know, Marilyn Manson on the album, especially after obviously comments that he made. And I felt like, you know, there's been debates about that. And I feel like, in my opinion, that's one thing I really love about Kanye West. On one hand, you know, because he uses his art as a redemption opportunity, right? Like, he's done so many things in our kind of popular society where he's had the opportunity to use art as an opportunity to share his own version of that, whether there's remorse or not. And I feel like maybe that's what he presented for the baby, to come on a song which is Jail, which I think thematically makes so much sense because everybody was canceling him. So this is an opportunity
In the court of public
to
opinion,
talk about,
yeah.
you've been jailed. What's your perception of how you want the world to hear and see that? He didn't take that baton anyway. He went on a different route with that. But at the end of the day, that's what I feel like the kind of the olive branch was. It's like, you know, this is a song. It's about people, whatever you want to interpret it as. But the concept is jail. So that's a perfect opportunity to come out and redeem yourself or speak about your own narrative, as opposed to people just canceling you and not hearing from you, you know.
Yeah.
And I think he shared a little bit of an insight about where the baby is, which, again, as art goes, that's honest. Whether we agree that he was not completely remorseful, that's a separate part. But the fact that he talked about, you know, you trying to take food off the table for my daughter, all of this stuff. I was raised by crackheads, all of that. Like, he had an opportunity to talk about that. And I think that's healthy discourse.
Facts.
Yeah. No, like I don't think that takes away from the album at all. But at the same time, I think we look at it through those lens because it's Kanye West. Yeah. So I think we kind of give Kanye West that rope as far as he's this creative genius. And
He is,
there's
though.
these inner dimensions within these inner dimensions.
He's earned that. That's
No,
not earned that.
I completely agree with that. But I feel that we give him that kind of scope, whereas when it comes to other artists, if it doesn't slap,
But they're not
for the free-
geniuses,
for-
that's
for-
why.
for the- for the-
But yeah, well, that's their fault. They haven't created that around them for us to accept it. He's created a thing that makes us be like, whoa, okay, Kanye, you can get away with it.
But I think in that case, then it's kind of difficult to really judge his work fairly, especially when he has the potential to create something which is lackluster, which, in my opinion, this album falls into.
Fair
you
enough.
know,
Yeah, I think he's
I get
created
that.
lackluster work before he has, and he's
get
created rushed work. Or the series of like 7-song albums that he put out, you know, definitely felt and sounded rushed. A lot of them. you know.
Yeah.
I liked some songs out of some of them, but this didn't sound anything like rushed.
Yeah,
you know, I
yeah.
felt like there was concerted effort, there was time, there was a lot of presence in that. I don't think it's his best piece of work though. I still think as rankings go, he's like 5th or 6th album, but I just feel as a Kanye fan, in the last 4 or 5 drops, this is one of the few I've been quite excited to listen to, like, consistently.
Did you think this album's better than Yeezus?
I would listen to this more than Yeezus.
Really?
Personally, like now knowing what this is and what narrative and where he's come from Yeezus, this kind of relates more to me as a person and where I'm going to what I would listen to in Yeezus.
Yeah. The reason why I only ask that because the album is really polarizing. Some people really love it, and some people
don't.
really hate it.
Right.
Like, for myself, that's probably the album that I listen to the most from Kanye West.
Wow.
Not the one that I feel like is his best, but is the one that I feel most. I find that album most enjoyable. But when it comes to comparing Donda, this is the album which I'll say that this album kind of matches the most, sonically wise, because it's really piercing. It really pierces through the speakers. But I think the difference between Yeezus and Donda is that Yeezus brings you more on the musical journey.
And it's shorter.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you were to condense Donda into its best tracks, I think we're having a completely different conversation. But I think the fact that there's so much filler in it,
Yeah, that's a healthy point. I get
You know.
that.
I don't feel like for him to have named it Donda as well. I think maybe I came into this album with high expectations, you know, of it being named after his mom, and then knowing that as well he was going to touch on his faith and his journey, you know, through the gospel. And yeah, I think maybe probably taking that with Donda, I just don't feel like he really gave the message or articulated what he really wanted to convey, whether if it was about his mom, whether if it was about, you know, his journey through his faith. I still don't feel like there were some songs, but I still don't feel like for a complete project of 27 songs, he conveyed that in the best way possible.
But what did you? I know we probably not got too much time, but what did you want to hear with the album that was named his mom? What was like? Do you want every song to be like, "Mom, I miss you. I miss you tomorrow, Mom"?
No,
You coming
it's
tomorrow,
not.
Mom?
No, it's not that. But just any. There was nothing. I'm not sure if there was nothing sentimental really in this album.
We heard her voice.
There
We
was-
heard her
there was-
voice.
Yeah. That. Besides that, though, besides
lot of
Donda,
times.
besides the times when they were speaking, I think that he inserted some like speeches and stuff from people in there. Besides those little moments. Other than that, I didn't feel, even with the lyrics when he was rapping, there was nothing sentimental.
It was like, if I
that
died
was really-
today, would I see my mom tomorrow? And Jesus Lord, he mentioned that a couple times. You know, say you were the life for the party. Like even his voice cadence, you could hear the pain in that.
yeah.
Like he was like, you know, Mom, you were the life for the party. You know, and like I don't know what else we expected to hear. You know, it's
Again,
like,
I think maybe if some of those, I think probably at least 10 of those songs was probably taken away then. So I could actually, so we can have dived into that and had the heart of that album. But I think whereas the fillers came in and everything in the beginning, it just, I lost it. I lost the concept. I lost the sentimental value. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it felt watered down. So by the time I did hear Donda's voice, by the time he is like, yeah, you were the life of the party, it's like, okay, cool. But I've already listened to like 16 songs, it feels like by now, to even get to this point. So yeah, now I am singing. By the time Jesus Lord is came on, that was actually the first song and only song that made me sing out loud. Was Jesus is Lord. And I hate that I actually felt like that because I adore Kanye and I really admire his work, but nothing in that album brought me out of myself. I didn't feel like anything in the album, you know, made me aware. It didn't make me any more aware about how he feels about his mom. It didn't make me any more I didn't learn anything different about his faith, about his journey with his faith, or about his mother or anything like that with it. So that's why I feel about it.
You see, I don't like. I guess we can end with this. Like, I think that this album, as sentimental as it was to Kanye West, like to your point about what is it that we expected, if you're doing a stadium rollout for your album, right, people are expecting the creme de la creme. Like, if he did this rollout and we got Dark Twisted Fantasy, I don't think there's any complaints, right? But I think the fact that he did the rollout and we got this, I think people have a right to feel somewhat disappointed if that was the level that they were expecting.
yeah, but I do think just finally come on that point is whatever Kanye West drops. When Kanye West dropped My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, there were people that sounded like that too.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, no matter what Kanye West drops, if it's a rollout or he just put it out in his bedroom the next day, people are going to have their own polarizing opinions about Kanye West music. Because a lot of people today think My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was a rubbish album.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can end it there. But before we do, has anyone changed their position from the beginning?
I've gained greater insight around the perspectives of both of you around
Not liking it.
yeah, and why you think that, because I think that's healthy points. I think they make sense. For me, just emotionally and my investment to the sound and to what it was that he was connecting to, I still stand on that 4 out of 5. But, you know.
Judah still 6 out of 5?
Boy, you know, there's a lot of been talking. I swear. I think, you know what, yeah, I'm going to be real. I have to take it down to a 4.
Okay, cool.
No, I have to take it down to a 4 because, for one, perfection is hard to reach, and for two, there's always room for improvement. And obviously, debating with everyone who I've been debating with is giving me different perspectives and things to think about more than just the gas of, you know what, it's a positive album.
Yeah.
He done this. It was a sick visuals. Relax, bro. You see me? It's a 4 out of 5 for me.
You know, I'll take that. I think me and Lex, we did our job well with that.
Yeah.
I sit next to her again.
You're not up in yours now? Sticking to 2?
No, I'll stick to 2.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick to my 2.5, but I will say I'm a little bit more lenient. You know, I feel like, you know, listening to y'all really talk about kind of like, well, what do you expect him to do with this album? Made me feel like, okay, I mean, no, I guess you're not gonna post up pictures about tell us how your mom held your hand, but you know, still, I still just don't feel like it. I didn't feel touched. I didn't get chills. And I love Kanye's work, so I felt that before. I didn't hear a journey. I didn't hear a story. So I still have to stick with my 2.5.
Cool.
It's his 10th album. Just saying, 10th album. Who has ever been that consistent?
Yeah, and the 10th album,
You know, it's
you
like
named it after
Drake.
your mom, and you've made a
10
crowded
albums.
project.
Drake don't got 10.
Drake's got
You've
10.
made a crowded
Drake's got 10.
project.
You got 10.
Was there just out of curiosity, was there any women on this project?
Yeah.
Was there?
There's there is,
actually.
okay, number 2. There's a woman,
Yeah.
Salina Johnson's voice is on Donda, the original. I mean, the singing. I mean, the first track. But Yeah, there's like 2 women's voices.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
sorry.
not-
There is
Drake
actually.
ain't got 10. He's 10 years. He's been in the game. I'm getting
Oh,
it twisted.
yeah,
Yeah, it's 10 years, not 10 albums. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
let's leave it there then. Let's drop the ball on that one. I think that was a really good conversation.
That was great.
Yeah.
You know, thanks everyone for coming. So yeah, I'm your host Jordan.
Lexi.
And I, Judah.
And Kay.
Cool, and we'll see you again next time.
Peace.
Peace.
That was good, guys.